Hi, this is Richard and Craig from Mindful Monash with another mindful moment for you. This week's mindful moment is about the distinction between mindfulness and meditation,
Yeah.
because that's a question that comes up a lot. Is mindfulness the same as meditation? If not, how do they relate to each other?
Yeah. And I think part of the confusion is that because those words are almost used interchangeably.
Yes.
And mindfulness is certainly a form of meditation, and there are variations of mindfulness meditation practices.
And lots of different types of meditations.
That's right. And mindfulness, in a broader sense, it means to be mindful for the other 23 hours and however many minutes in the rest of the day.
Yeah.
So to live mindfully, to live with that awareness, that sense of presence, that sense of engagement that we cultivate when sitting in a chair.
So presence, being in the moment, paying attention and having a sense of engagement with what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's how we define mindfulness.
Yeah, and when you look at all of the interventions on mindfulness, you got one end of the spectrum, which is virtually no meditation practice at all, right up to the other end of the spectrum, which is much more intensive meditation. So
Yep.
the question is, do we have to practice meditation? A lot of people listening probably think, can I avoid it in some way? It takes effort and so, or how much practice is optimal?
Yes. And there is a bit of a debate actually happening in the literature. Some people take a strong view either way.
Yeah.
I personally like meditation. I think it's in some ways the foundation of living mindfully. Meditation, so you've got mindfulness being paying attention, being in the present moment with those attitudes of openness and acceptance. Then you've got meditation, which is formally, often sitting down and cultivating that. So we take a period of time, maybe 5-10 minutes. Usually we'll sit down and we'll focus the attention on the senses, so the body or the breath. Notice when it wanders off, bring it back over and over again. And we train ourselves to notice when the mind's wandered and come back without judgment, and ultimately to be more present in each moment. So that's what mindfulness meditation is. That's the formal training. Then, as you said, we've got the rest of our lives. So once we get up out of the chair, how are we living that?
Yeah.
And are we just then going back into automatic pilot and being off in default mode and reacting to everything all day? Or do we try to bring some of that same attitude into our day-to-day life? And that's what living mindfully would be, to bring that attitude.
And not everybody's going to be up for 30 or 40 minutes of meditation practice in a day.
No.
But even shorter amounts can be very helpful. But also, in terms of cultivating the meditation, I think it does help us to be mindful in the rest of the day.
Definitely.
To use a metaphor, we could get fit by taking the stairs at work, by doing a bit of digging in the garden and so on.
Walk to the station, etc.
Incidental sort of exercise. But spending that half hour of going for a run or going to the gym increases our fitness a lot more.
A lot.
And so
it makes it easier to do those other things.
That's right. And so in a way, the formal practice, taking some time just to practice being mindful sitting in a chair, I think there's a great argument as to that being very helpful. But we have to find our own level of motivation, our own preparedness, and cultivate mindfulness in ways that are meaningful to us.
Yeah, and a lot of people start with the informal practices by washing the dishes mindfully or being out in the garden or doing things mindfully, and then eventually start to meditate. I want to make a massive plug for meditation here, because one of the things that happens when we meditate that might not happen if we're rock climbing or gardening or washing the dishes mindfully is that we can start looking inside and really noticing how the mind works.
It's more revealing, really, isn't it?
It's very revealing, and we can really start to see the source code, or basically how the mind is operating. And that's a very useful thing, to see that the mind wanders, that we get caught up in a lot of negative thinking, that then triggers the fight and flight response in the body, that we react to things, that we're judging things all the time. This becomes much more obvious when we're meditating. So it's a very useful thing to do on a regular basis.
And perhaps one last point as well is those mini meditations, the little half minute here, the minute there, that we punctuate our day with, can be tremendously helpful as well. Not just the longer sitting practices, but those little moments of pausing before we head off to a meeting, before we walk inside the house. They can be tremendously helpful. And so that there are many different ways, infinite number of cultivating mindfulness in our lives.
So however you engage with it, start practicing some mindfulness, whether it's through meditation or just doing things mindfully, and notice the difference that it has, not just for you, but also the people around you, as that attitude of being present and open and accepting starts to ripple out into the world.